What up, everybody? It's your boy Kentario, and I'm back again for another episode of Christ and Comic Books. And today's video is going to be on the Netflix hit series known as Arcane. Now, this series seems to have gotten a 9.4 out of 10 on IMDb, making it one of the most popular series on Netflix right now. Now, in taking a moment to give a little background on this series, it is based off of a popular PC game known as League of Legends, and several of the characters in the show of Arcane are featured from said video game. This game was created by Mark Merrill and Brandon Beck. It's ironic that they're using alliterations. They must have also liked Marvel and Stan Lee. But these two created this game back in 2006, I believe it is, and did not end up becoming the biggest hitting PC game worldwide in esports until October of 2018-2019. But since they've created this, it has completely blown up, as I stated before. One of the things to point out about the game itself is that this game has multiple characters where people come together in teams to take each other's bases, otherwise known as Nexus. And like I said, the characters that they use are featured in the show of Arcane. Now let's get into actually talking about the series of Arcane. Arcane is about two cities, Piltover and Zaun. Piltover being a thriving, rich city that's looking to, I guess you could say, advance their people, grow in success and riches. That's their main focus. That's where a lot of their business takes place, the transporting of goods, selling goods, and buying goods. A lot of that is done through Piltover. And on the opposite end is where you have Zaun, the Undercity. This is where a lot of your homeless people are, orphans, all of those type of people live here in Zaun. Now, long ago, things got a lot rocky between Piltover and Zaun, so much so they entered into war against each other. But Zaun, for the most part, ended up losing this war. A lot of children were orphaned through this battle, resulting in them needing to either, of course, live on the streets or be taken in by somebody else. One of the warriors, taking a position of leadership in Zaun, known as Vander, ends up taking in 4 of those orphans and tries to, demonstrate a way towards peace versus continuing them to teach them about war, especially due to all the lives and the suffering that was brought forth due to this battle. He aims towards peace. And in bringing up these 4 kids, he's trying to teach them that very thing. But at the same time, they were alive for all of the events that took place. So although they're not looking for complete bloodshed, they are looking for Zaun to become a thriving and successful place, rather than being those that are stuck under the foot of Piltover. Now, the 4 children that Vander took in, Vi and Powder, the 2 sisters, and then these friends, Milo and Clagger, they work together to be totally honest, to rob Piltover and take what they can sell on the low to make sure that they can have money, to make sure that they can thrive on some level while living here in Zaun. But on this last trip, it seems as though Powder resulted in causing a bit of mischief in the process, stealing some magical stones, resulting in doing some damage to the land of Piltover. Due to the damage that has been done, this isn't something that they can sweep under the rug. This has to be dealt with. It's too much for them to ignore this time. Pause. Now let's begin to look at everything that's taking place from the standpoint of Piltover. The place that they were robbing was a place where 2 men by the name of Jace and Victor have been working using those stones, those magical stones, to in fact work towards combining magic with science to be able to further advance the progression of their people so that they can become more successful. Not necessarily from a battle or war standpoint, but from a functioning working position. For instance, making gloves so that the miners that work there would be able to work more efficiently, even resulting in them being able to create warp or teleport gates known as hex gates, which are shown later in the series. But due to the explosion that was caused by Powder, this has gotten the eye of the council. The council being, I guess you could say, judge and jury over the going-ons of Piltover. Being that this has caught the eye of the council, one in particular known as Heimerdinger, who is a 300-year-old, I guess you could say, fox creature of sorts, has a history of knowing the dangers of messing with magic. So in them trying to create their hex tech, as they call it, this causes him some concern, suggesting that you guys need to take it a little slower with doing something like this, if not abolishing this attempt at all. This is very dangerous. He's already hinting at these warnings since the beginning of the series. But on the other hand, you want to have one known as Mel Medardo, who is looking to use this to, in some sense, advance her position, to increase her riches, make herself look more successful. At least that's what we're getting from the beginning of the series. And so she, with her influence, is pushing more towards supporting their work so that things don't get out of control, which of course results in the success of the Hex Gates, resulting in them years later becoming a grandstanding form of transportation, being able to transport their business a lot more quickly and efficiently, as well as, you know, vacations and travels. Like I said, Piltover is a place for the rich, right? Now let's shift on back to Zaun.
Now lean back.
With everything that's happening in Piltover, this has enhanced the criticalness of the actions that Powder took with taking those magical stones. So much so, the enforcers aren't being called to pull back, but instead to further their advances in getting their hands on Powder and on those magical stones. And Xander is doing his best to, again, keep the peace. He's like, guys, please just turn your eyes from this. We don't want to do this. We can't do this. I'm not turning her over. Because he's also a father figure to Powder. He's not going to betray his daughter. He's not going to betray his family. But on the other hand, also living in Zaun is a man by the name of Silko. Silko, also looking to operate as a leader in Zaun, is looking to do this more so in a violent fashion. He wants to make Zaun an independent nation, but he's willing to take the violent route. So much so, he promotes the use of what's known as Shimmer, which is a magical liquid that's something like a drug that he uses to make soldiers, simply put. And in this ruckus that has been caused due to this magical stone, he uses this as his opportunity to take on an attack against the enforcers and betray who was his longtime best friend and brother, Xander. This night transforms their entire experience going forward for the rest of this first season for Silko, for Vander, for Vi, for Powder, for Milo, and for Clegor. Now, as my father would say, he's like, tell the story, but don't tell the whole story. I'm going to have spoilers, as you guys have already seen, but I'm going to do my best not to give too many. And that's why I kind of want to go over some key points in the series in this video. And one of the things that I want to identify immediately right out the gate when I'm looking at this series overall, the series is an amazing story. The story itself is very drawing. It does a great job of building a relationship between you and the characters that are involved. It does a great job of, although you understand the dynamic, you also have your questions. And they look to answer those questions just a little bit at a time to keep you interested. And those are a lot of the strong suits that I find with the series and its storyline. Now, I must say that there is a lot to unpack, but I will do my very best to be brief rather than being long-winded. So one of the things that I want to go ahead and address in going over this video is, like, on the surface, right, you might be willing to assume that this is some strong feminist leftist move on their part in the way that this story is being portrayed. You have a female lead. You have this story being about two sisters instead of about two brothers. Majority of the main cast that's being focused on in this series are women. Some other things that they do here as well is that they hint at and they play on there being a lot of lesbian relationship there, putting women in positions of power, whether that be physical strength or that be political power. And they emphasize that a lot throughout the series. But what I must say, even though on the surface you can make that assumption, they don't tell that story in a way to where it's not consistent. They don't tell that story in a way to where they're trying to manipulate or deceive people into thinking that this would be a far better form. Like I said, they do a magnificent job of illustrating two different dynamics. The rich versus the poor, the successes and struggles of being rich versus the successes and struggles even in the country of Zon. So you get both dynamics, you get both successes, and you get both struggles. They make sure to bring for the most part, I would say, a congruent balance when we're looking at it just from a TV show, a series, a great storyline. One thing to say, like I said, this is some stuff that's frustrating. You know, they introduce even the council leader, Mel Medardo, they introduce her mother as a fully built powerhouse of a woman of war, a successful battle leader with battle wisdom, and the way that she uses men as just for their bodies or as servants. They play on that a lot, and for someone that's concerned with seeing a lot of leftist feminist stuff, that might be an immediate turnoff. But I'm going to have to strongly disagree, and I'm going to tell you why here in just a moment. Like I was saying before, the national dynamic, rich versus poor, I pointed out that they do a great job of balancing out that there's corruption on both sides. Both sides have the potential for pure evil and the influences of that evil on those that are either being manipulated or are the next generation. The way that they are used is just like, they're both jacked up. There's no side that's good. Everyone's fair game. And you see a lot of that throughout the way that this story is truly written, which is also something that, although you see all of that, you get that glimmer of hope from both sides that things can change for the better. You have that little group that you're rooting to see come out of all of this, or you see them and like, man, I hope they don't mess them up, or I hope they don't mess that up. You have that little bit there in the series. It's a hope. There's hope there. I guess as a Christian, you could say there's that mustard seed, right? But shifting back to Mel and that with her mother, right? When you look at the way that her mother is, the surprising revelation that I got seeing her operate that way is that it identifies that whether it is a man or a woman, both are capable of it. Now, you might be thinking are you saying a woman could be a great woman of war just like a man can? Yeah, but take it a little deeper, right? Like I said, she's someone that Mel actually does not love. Mel doesn't like her mom. Mel and her mother had a falling out because her mother kicked her out of their home nation, sending her to Piltover because she wasn't cut out for their lifestyle or their ways of war. She was hoping to help her daughter to mature, right? Even more so, she demonstrates willing to sacrifice others to be successful, manipulate others so that she can become stronger. She seeks power no matter the cost. Even more so, she thinks that the moves that she makes towards her people and towards her family is for their good. And in the end, in some sense, you're looking at that and like, you're going to find out that you're really just jacking things up versus making things better. And that's what I mean by whether it's man or woman, both can be corrupted by pursuit of power. And that's where I see that that's actually a value, because a lot today with those leftist, feminist, radical activists, you can see that, hey, you're being corrupted by pursuit of power, point blank period. You may think that all you're doing is identifying power. No, you're actually being corrupted by this pursuit of power. And this show does a great job of acknowledging that. And so that's where I want to recognize that in the series of Arcane. Now, like I pointed out before, you might be frustrated with the main cast being two girls and these two sisters and the complexity of their relationship. Oh, they're just trying to make them like, they're making it two brothers, but instead they want to do two sisters. They're trying to make their move. No, because what you get here, you don't see it as a brother-to-brother relationship or even brother and sister relationship. You're seeing the struggles in that type of environment that you could possibly imagine would be between two sisters. You have a sister that's the older sister, Vi, trying to protect her baby sister. No matter what ventures they go on, no matter what they do, she's supporting her, she's encouraging her, she's not letting anyone talking bad about her as much as they try to. And she believes in what her sister could do for the good, no matter what. But you get that moment where it's just like, okay, you've done pushed it too far, and because the older sister has bottled up her frustrations, she finally lashes out with everything that she hates or gets on her nerves, and that results in the sister falling into that position of despair, falling into all of those insults, having that dominion over her life, and then someone coming in, Silko, to not heal her of her pain, but to take advantage of that, to nurture the pain, and to use that to his advantage. And now with Vi being separated or gone for years and years, decides to show back up. Again, I'm not going to do too many spoilers. To show back up and attempt to restore their relationship. Thus the older sister maturing and growing a little along that journey of restoring her relationship with her sister. But you got to ask that question with the way that they do it. Is it too late for her to restore that relationship? So when you're looking at these two sisters, it's not just a propagandic move. This is very well captured for a relationship between two sisters. So much so, watching it, I couldn't help but think of my wife and her relationship to her sister. So that's at least my view and my perspective on the way that relationship played out. And like I said, the overall story, the way that they use these characters, magnificent. I think it's an amazing story being told. Let's get into that Christian perspective, okay? And like I said earlier, overall, Arcane is amazing. Overall, that story is attractive. Overall, it's very consistent, okay? They're not trying to push anything, or at least on the surface, they're not trying to promote anything. You would have to dig really hard to assume that that is the case. Mainly because when they are introducing the different things that are taking place in this series, what I've captured is that they do an effective job of depicting the complexity of choice, and even more so after you've made that choice, the consequences of the choices that you make, what that results in, who's going to suffer because you chose to do that. They capture that. Because someone wasn't there to do this, this is what that resulted in. This is the pain that this has caused. You know that type of message is powerful. That type of message is powerful, and they don't hold back in illustrating that on either side. Whether you're from Piltover or whether you're from Zon, whether you are rich or whether you are poor, whether you're trying to do good or whether you're trying to do evil, any decision that you make can result in something good or bad happening from those decisions. But I will say there are primarily two things that would concern me as a Christian, and I would say definitely should concern you, that you should be watchful for, that you should tread softly with. This one isn't major, but again, be watchful. Is that they play on there being a lesbian relationship between two of the characters, that being Vi and another woman by the name of Caitlin. Caitlin becomes more major role after the time skip takes place within the series. She becomes a bit more applicable. But although they don't actually act on any feelings, what they do is they do the hinting, they do the relationship building. They illustrate them being there for each other and getting closer and closer and closer, and Vi in some sense choosing her over her sister. They play on that a lot, which leaves fans saying, oh, they're gonna get together, oh my goodness, they're gonna be together. And for a believer in Jesus, that's just like, we don't believe in that, we don't promote that, we don't support that. But the only thing I would say is, in them doing that, they do a great job of illustrating relationship development. That part was good, not them doing it between two women being good. Okay, I'm gonna be honest about that from my perspective. That was great, the way that they illustrated it, the way that they built on it, but not it being between two women. I'm not going to support that. I just go, move on, please. So that's the way that I see it, at least me personally. Another thing, and this is the biggest one, right? As we draw this video to a close, to be totally honest, it's probably my shortest video. Are y'all having an effect on me? Am I trying to get more views? Boy, if you don't... Anyway, this next thing is being the magic. I'm pretty sure some of you was like, he sped past the magic thing there at the beginning, act like we didn't hear him say nothing about magic. No, you knew I was going to talk about it. One of my most recent videos was talking about magic and being worried about that. I've done several posts on my TikTok and even here on YouTube talking about that we need to be watchful, that they are promoting magic a lot more in our media. That's a very dangerous thing, and that's what you're getting in Arcane. Although it's not the biggest focus on both sides, is at least the focus on the Piltover side, right? Like I said, they're creating what's called hex tech. I don't believe hex is even a good word. It's something to do with cursing someone is a hex. Someone's been hexed. Someone's cursed. So hex isn't even a positive term. So for them to use hex tech for the name of their equipment to advance humanity, that's a problem. That I have to acknowledge that as a problem. Them wanting to combine that with science so that they can advance this. They've already been trying to do that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's already a thing, and now we're getting another animated series where that is the thing, is them combining magic with science and hoping it'll do good. That's a problem, okay? And you see that on both sides. You see that with the Hex Tech, and then with Zon, they're using what's called Shimmer, using it in their world. It's like drugs. So people are taking it, they're getting withdrawals and or suffering side effects from having partaken in it, but they do get either power boost or high off of the product, or it's used as a power source for them with certain mechanical tools. So you see it on both sides, the way that they are actually using these mediums. And so with all of that being said, right, I have to acknowledge, again, it's the storytelling that does it for me, right? Here's the only thing I will accredit Arcane for when it comes to using magic. They're illustrating magic in it without denying the fact that it comes at a cost. I don't know if y'all heard me. They illustrate magic without denying the fact that it comes at a cost. Okay? So, in one sense, you're already seeing that people fighting over it. That's the cost in and of itself. But in one moment, you have the character of Victor looking to harness this to help people. That's what he's seeing this as. I want to be able to better manage this so I can help people. So he ends up making like this cube, like a Rubik's Cube like thing, with the symbols on it, with the glyphs on it, trying to code them so that he can heal himself of his ailments. He has a bad leg as well as a disease in him that's slowly killing him. As a matter of fact, he's actually from Zon, where he was introduced to how someone used Shimmer to try and save an animal's life, I guess you could say. So that's what put him on this road in the first place. So he's messing with this cube and getting no results until he ends up coughing up blood. And in him coughing up blood, the cube is triggered by the blood. The blood is drawn into the cube and its power is triggered, establishing a connection between Victor and the cube itself. And almost triggering, now that it's somewhat helped him, I did something with restoring his leg. He now starts doing that a bit more consistently, a bit obsessively, and using a little of his blood to help heal himself a little bit more so that he can better use the power of this cube while everything else around him is happening. Okay, so that one, magic wanting to take blood, it's wanting to take life. You can see that from that. And what confirms this is later in the midst of this obsession, finally a trigger truly happens. One, he's connected with the cube, and it looks as though it's about to, do something to him, but then someone else shows up in the scene, and it ends up actually taking their life. And this was someone that's actually close to him. And what did they capture by doing that? They illustrated that you will have to sacrifice those you love in order to access power, if not sacrificing yourself. And that's the dangers of magic that people don't realize. That's the dangers of magic that is being slept on. So if you're watching this series and getting hyped about magic, or you thinking light of magic, thinking it's something to play with, it's not. Magic is not a game. And in the least, I will credit the show for that. And for the most part, I would encourage you to tread softly watching stuff that involves it, inspiring you to want to read more about magic, inspiring you to want to practice more with magic. Magic is the game, because it'll either cost you yours or your loved one's life. So be very careful. And in one sense, I will say that I love the character of Heimerdinger for that. People reject him because he's the older character, okay? So that's one thing I will say. They did capture how, the younger is treating the older generation, thinking they don't understand or they've been lying the whole time, that kind of thing. But with him being alive for so long, he knew the darkness of magic. And he warned his people against it, but they came against him so that they could have it. And in the end, you see Heimerdinger go from resenting magic to being put in this position where he can see the beauty of humanity and them coming together and working together to support each other, and how quickly they were able to make a change, at least for them in their small section of Zon. They were able to do something great that just was just, I guess you could say, put Heimerdinger in a state of awe. And so that demonstrates that you guys can actually become something more without magic. You can be something more to each other without magic. So you get the hint of those type of messages in there too, which leaves a lot of mixed feelings. But again, the magic, man, that's a turn off. That's a turn off for me. That takes the points away for me when it comes to the series. And I pray that with what I've shared with you in this video, that this is helpful and beneficial in you deciding, you know, hey, am I gonna watch this? Would this be good for me? Will there be any spiritual side effects from watching this? Will there be a positive message from watching this? So I pray that this helps you in making that decision for yourself as you decide whether or not to watch the show of Arcane. Thank you all, and I hope you have yourselves a blessed evening. Peace.